times in New York they have the push lock, like you push the button. Though if you turn the knob, it automatically unlocks. So then you don't know if the door is actually locked, right? So you're very scared. Now you can't go to the bathroom because you're wondering if the door is open. This is a real problem. Don't laugh. It's a major problem in my life. Though this restaurant had very loud music. So I went and I locked the door, and within a minute, someone knocks on the door. So I said very loudly, "Somebody's in here." Then 10 seconds pass. I'm waiting. I don't do anything. I'm waiting to make sure they go away. They bang louder 2 times. So at this point, I don't know what to do, so I bang back 2 times. So then 10 seconds pass, and this person bangs 3 times. Yeah. So I bang 3 times back. Like, what do you want me to do? And there's a pause. And I hear a woman's voice, and she says, "Alex, is that you?" I said, "Alex, go on it." I said, "No, I'm not Alex." So then she bangs really fast, really loud, and she says, "Alex, are you in there?" So where's Alex? But then maybe Alex gets lost and goes to the bathroom, I don't know. And she says, "Who are you?" Who am I? Who do you care? Like, who are you? Right? So then another minute passes, and she says, "Alex, are you in there?" Who's Alex? So finally I open the door. There's a woman there, and there's 4 other people with her. And I open the door, and it's a very small space, so we're standing right in front of each other. And she says, very seriously, "You're not Alex." And I said, "I know that." So in conclusion, my name is Haroon. I am not Alex. So there's a book by a journalist named Sebastian Junger called Tribe, right? Tribe. He talks about something called self-determination theory. It's a psychological theory about what motivates human beings to do the things they do. And he says that in this theory, human beings, all people, regardless of culture or race or ethnicity or nationality, need 3 things in order to feel that their life has purpose, in order to feel meaningful. And these are, they need to feel competent at what they do. So you need to feel like you're good at what you do. And this is an elemental part of whether or not a human being feels like her life is of purpose. The second thing is you need to feel authentic in your life, that you're not lying or insincere or dishonest, that you need to feel like what you do and who you are is reflected in the world around you. And the third thing is you need to feel connected to other human beings, that people who live in isolation from each other, no matter how much they have in terms of beauty, money, or status, will fundamentally feel like they're hollow inside. And so in this theory that Sebastian Junger talks about, all these external things that happen in a society are irrelevant to or external to what's actually going on inside in your heart and your mind. And so what I want to talk about is a little bit about social media and new media, so like Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, all these tools, basically how we use the internet, and how it affects people psychologically, and how it affects people positively and negatively. Does that make sense? And when I talk about this, I want us all to keep in mind this very weird point that actions which have good intentions can sometimes have bad consequences, and actions which seem superficially bad can sometimes surprisingly have good consequences. So probably the most prominent example to me is the Arab Spring, which started in Tunisia and Tunis when a man named Mohammed Bouazizi lit himself on fire. He committed suicide, which is not a good thing. And as a result of this action of desperation, triggered a revolution which changed his country, right? Whether or not he would have anticipated that happening, we have no idea because he died, right? But the action itself had a surprising consequence, that something bad led to something good. And now I'm going to completely jump to another topic because I have attention deficit disorder. So I will change topics every 2 minutes, and then you just have to play along. Does everyone know what Islamophobia is? Yes? Right? It is fear or hatred of Muslims based on exaggerated or inaccurate information. It's no different than any other kind of discrimination or bigotry, except the target is Islam or Muslims. And a perception you may have, and many of us living in the United States have, is that Islamophobia in the United States has increased. Yet the paradox about Islamophobia in the United States, which is kind of weird, is that it's been increasing even though the causes of that initial sentiment appear to be decreasing. So logically, right, you would imagine that a sentiment against a group of people would be worse when the perception of that people is worse. So you would think that around 9/11, most Americans would be most negatively disposed towards Muslims and subsequently more positively disposed, right? Because nothing like that happened in the United States anytime recently. Yet if you look at the United States, it's all been increasing in the last 5 or 6 years. And one of the reasons for that is what I'm going to talk about today, and it has profound effects for the idea of citizen journalism, for the idea of how we tell stories, why stories work the way they do, and why images affect people the way they do. And what I want to argue is that in the United States, Islamophobia has neither increased nor decreased. And this might seem counterintuitive. What I want to argue is that what's happening in the United States is happening all over the world. And it's that the visibility of Muslims is rising. And when the visibility of any group of people increases, right, you become more aware of something, you are forced to take a position on it. You don't have to take a position on something or someone if you don't see them. And when I say see them, I don't mean literally physically like I can see you now. It's whether or not you're in my brain. I would argue that your generation is living in the first truly post-colonial moment. Because for the first time, power in the world is no longer concentrated in Western countries, right? The world is fundamentally a different place. And this change is playing out very slowly. It'll be something that'll play out in your generation. But what it means is that for many people who lived in a world where they were the only people who mattered, suddenly other people matter. And when I say matter, I don't mean morally, because morally, obviously, everyone matters. It means I can't ignore you because you have power. And when you have power, suddenly I can't impose my story on you. The question, though, is what is your story, and what is the story that you tell back, and what happens between these two stories? And when I say story, I don't mean fiction, right? Like fiction is great. I like fiction. I write fiction. It's pretty bad, so don't read it. But I mean the way you explain yourself in the world in terms of self-determination theory, right? Do you feel authentic in your life? Does your life feel like it makes sense in terms of the values you have from your parents, from your family, from your culture, from your society, from your education? And does that story make sense to other people? In the United States, the narrative on Muslims, the story, and I'll explain how this is all connected, is that when 9/11 happened, the prevailing sentiment among most New Yorkers was of confusion, panic, anger, but also solidarity. And usually in a disaster or crisis situation, this is the amazing thing, human beings suddenly band together. Because our core instincts are egalitarian. We don't like the idea of injustice or inequality. We like the idea that we're part of a group and that everyone contributes to a group and that therefore the entire group is in something together. We need a sense of purpose in our lives. You see what I'm saying? Right? Which is the amazing thing, which is why when you talk to people who come back from war, for example, they'll say, oh, it was horrible, but they have positive feelings about it. Because they had a sense that everyone around them was equal and had a shared responsibility. And it didn't really matter where you were from, right? Or how much money you had, but simply that your life is in danger and my life is in danger and we're in this together. And there's something like very elemental about that and basic about that. And it has consequences for how people treat each other. So an interesting fact, so for the men in the room, this is amazing. You find this, it holds in most countries in the world, I'm sure it holds here, that a man has to be at least 75 years old, 75, to receive the amount of assistance in an emergency that a woman at any point in her life will receive, right? Like, it's kind of amazing, right? Like, sucks to be you and me. But I'm closer to there, so it's okay, as you can see. So I will be helped sooner than you will be helped. But it's this amazing sense that if someone's in an emergency, right, that you're supposed to help them. People in the United States, for example, and I'm quoting the United States because I know the statistics, the rate of mortality for men who intervene in emergencies to help someone is higher than in war. Which means that the average male who has no idea what he's doing necessarily, if he sees someone in danger, usually a woman, will intervene and in 1 out of 5 cases die in the course of the intervention. Immediately, spontaneously, there's a car crash, the car is on fire, the man will run in, pull the person out, and possibly die in the process, 20% of the time. Right? Because there's a sense of solidarity, there's a sense of purpose, this is something I'm supposed to do, and moreover, it makes the person feel good. right? Because, and I don't mean good in a cheap sense, is that this is what you're born to do, take care of other people. Now, of course, if it's a man in the car, it's kind of like you're fine, right? Like, you know, I mean, everybody has to die one day, right? So you know, it's like just do dua and, you know, read the kalma and then, you know, Allah is merciful. But this is an amazing thing. And the reason I'm quoting this is not only because it's interesting, it's because this is how human beings function in a situation of duress, right? That they literally let go of their other impulses and sacrifice for each other in a way that in ordinary circumstances they wouldn't think they're capable of. So one thing that's remarkable is, I spent some time in the West Bank recently, there's no homelessness among Palestinians, right? So their homes get destroyed, and yet the assumption is that if your home gets destroyed, someone will take you in. Right? Like it's as if, now if this was like a sort of normal, prosperous society that was not under military occupation, that probably wouldn't happen. It's your fault, you know, whatever. But in this situation, the sense that you're in this together, that person's home was destroyed, everyone has an obligation to rebuild that person's home or to give them a home. So there's no homelessness, right? Which is amazing. That's how human beings function, because they function with a sense of purpose. And so in the United States, for these several months after 9/11, New Yorkers were very much in this kind of sentiment of, we're all in this together. So if you look at these basic statistics, like rates of suicide, they declined sharply. So when people felt like they were in crisis, they were mentally healthier. Right? That's kind of weird, right? Like that's not what you would think. You would think people would respond differently. During the German bombing of the UK of London, the British government went crazy when they knew the Germans were going to bomb, because they anticipated that the average British person would go nuts and like just start breaking down on the street. And they anticipated, you know, like millions of people would start attacking each other, people would start stealing and looting and so on and so forth, and the opposite happened. Literally, the police were completely overwhelmed because there weren't enough police, and yet people organized themselves on their own every day to go to work while bombs were dropping, because they felt a sense of purpose. Now, in the United States, what happened is that after 9/11, there was this immediate feeling of solidarity, but there was no sense of what happened.